This video might make me sound like a moon boy, and I want to assure you I am not a moon boy, at least not yet. There will be a time when I will be an absolute moon boy, but what I want to do is put a chart on this screen and then just give some analysis to this chart. And guys, it's okay. I think some of you are pretty burned out by the Bitcoin M2 comparisons, especially with people towards the early to mid portions of 2025. You saw all these overlays with Bitcoin and M2, and they were projecting Bitcoin to go to $160,000 by August of 2025, $180,000, $200,000 by the end of the year. And if you remember, when I looked at that, I called nonsense. I was very confident that Bitcoin was not going to be able, or was just not going to follow all those M2 projections, and they did fade away. But let's just, with this chart on the screen, let's just do some objective analysis. And what's the worst case scenario for this? Now, forget the arrow that's kind of angled up. That is from an incredibly optimistic point of view, and the mindset with that is that Bitcoin is going to catch up to gold and silver, which have followed M2, global liquidity and all that. And they are making a point that Bitcoin has historically followed global M2. And so what's the hang up? What happened in 2025 that caused that to deviate? Okay, so some thoughts here. Let's start with the worst case scenario, is that Bitcoin has deviated in a major way from global M2. And what comes next? I don't know. I mean, it could be that there's a major reckoning coming for crypto and that it's not over yet. I would say that that is the least likely scenario. What about the most bullish scenario? Well, the most bullish scenario is that Bitcoin and the rest of crypto, they have a lot of catching up to do. And if you see where global liquidity is, and you look at gold and silver, that they have been correlated much better than Bitcoin over the last year. Well, I mean, that would mean that Bitcoin is going to do very well over the next several months and maybe year, or maybe a little bit longer than a year. Now, what is my perspective? My perspective is somewhat the latter, okay? Somewhat the optimistic approach. I have been on record consistently saying that, do I think that Bitcoin's going to hit a new all-time high in 2026? No, I don't. I think it's possible. I think it's enough of a possibility that you should at least entertain it. And I know, of course, oh no, we're supposed to bottom out in the fourth quarter of 2026. I've never believed that. I've never, for the last 4 years, never thought we were going to bottom out in the fourth quarter of 2026. And so where's my mind been? My mind has been that 2026 was actually going to be a pretty good year, that maybe we'd start out 2026 looking like a typical bear market, and then we'd deviate in a major way, and that it would end up being a really good year, and we'd remember it positively, maybe similar to 2023. 2023 was not a year that blew anyone away, but it was a year of steady gains. I wouldn't be surprised at all if Bitcoin was a decent amount higher, and a lot of altcoins were a decent amount higher by the end of this year than they are right now. Okay, but then my mindset has been that 2027 was going to be a year where Bitcoin would blow well beyond its 2025 peak. And I hold that with a lot of conviction, that if I were to guess, maybe first quarter, that seems a little optimistic on my end. Maybe first quarter 2027, we would see Bitcoin, we'd see euphoria, we'd even potentially see alt season for the altcoins and all that. Does that fit within this chart? That's the thing I'm trying to analyze right now. And here's the deal. It doesn't quite, because if you look at silver's ascent, that was a matter of months. Okay, it was a matter of months that silver caught up to gold, and it caught up to gold global liquidity. So if Bitcoin were to do something similar to that, it would mean that we would hit euphoria, just straight up euphoria, in a season with quantitative tightening being over. So a season that's much more favorable to altcoins also doing well, or even outperforming Bitcoin. That would mean that would happen in 2026. When in 2026? Probably the fourth quarter. So am I going to take this chart and say, yes, we are catching up to global liquidity and it's going to happen this year? I'm not. But I do think that Bitcoin does have a decent amount of catching up to do. Now, the last thing that I'll say, one other thing is gold, I'm quite convinced, is going to outperform Bitcoin this decade. And gold it's going to do very well. We're going to see gold, I think, at 15,000, 20,000, something like that. And that shouldn't be too discouraging. I mean, believe it or not, this decade, the 2020s at least, there's only a little over 3.5 years left, a little under 4 years left in the 2020s. We will survive. But if you look at the Bitcoin gold chart, what you'll see is that Bitcoin has a lot of catching up to do. So that's what's on the screen right now. Bitcoin has a lot of catching up to do on the short term with gold. It is incredibly oversold versus gold. Gold has had an incredible run, and even with a Bitcoin rally to lower highs in its gold valuation, we would see Bitcoin do very well. We'd see Bitcoin put in new all-time highs in its dollar valuation. So that's my playbook. I mean, I am of the mindset, yeah, Bitcoin will go well beyond its 2025 peak and not go beyond its 2025 gold peak, or actually 2024 gold peak. And that'll be perfectly fine. Because if we're going to measure this in dollars, then yeah, the sky's the limit, you know? So lots of reasons to be hopeful, and some reasons potentially to even be hopeful short term. I know the playbook that everyone wants you to believe, and I would strongly encourage you to think outside the box. I'll see you in another video.